Recording in progress. So welcome to our fourth lecture. Today we're taking a little break from lighting and we're going to talk about rendering sequences for animation. Now the rendering sequences for animation is in two parts. The first part will be the Unreal Engine, even though I have that second. Unreal Engine, we provide you with a pre-done Unreal scene. Your job is to go in and set it up so that the bunny spontaneously bursts into flames, and you render you render the correct range of frames and number of frames, and then generate individual EXRs all in Unreal. We take it into After Effects. You will need After Effects for all the assignments today. Whew, sloppy writing. Okay, so you will need After Effects. And we're going to take all the individual frames into After Effects and then generate a movie from those individual frames. Yeah, it looks like an Indiana Jones cursed relic. I agree. Go in there with a bag of sand, try and figure out same weight before you steal it, and then it bursts into flames. All in your hands. All right, the other is you're going to take your either still life or the Cornell rabbit. We're not doing the portrait, the still life or Cornell rabbit that you lit in Project 3. We have animated cameras that you will then import into the scene. And you will set that scene up with the right frame range, which means the right, start and end point, and also the right number of frames. Generate those EXRs using the Arnold renderer. We're also going to be using the Maya render view to generate this because Arnold does not have an option to sequence render in their render view, but Maya does. Now, the reason we're not using Arnold's batch rendering is because that is a pay to use feature, meaning you have to get the commercial rendering license in order for that to be activated. Now, you can generate frames, but they are watermarked, meaning they have Arnold written all over them, really light in the background, which we do not want to use. So even in Arnold's docs about sequence rendering, they recommend you use Maya's render view and the render sequence feature in Maya. It's really simple to use. It is going to be much slower to render than the Unreal because it is software and Unreal is hardware, meaning it is real time. So let's see. So this is the example of the Unreal. And then this is the example of the still life. Now the rabbit is more or less the same. So they're very simple, short animations. And they're going to be the same size frame that we've been rendering all along. We're not making it bigger. We're not making it smaller. It's the same size. All right. So a couple of notes, office hours, back to normal, Tuesdays, Thursdays. I'll be on basically 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., take some time in the middle for lunch. Office hours are on Discord. And I realize some of you may have, animation or portfolio during that time. That's fine. It is there if you need it. Drop in Discord. I can answer questions. You can also message me and email me. But it's a good way for me to be available for you and also for my online section. Now, on Thursday, same deal, 10 to 4, or actually 10 to 12, 1 to 4. And then we have a Zoom Open Lab. The Open Lab on Thursday is for online and campus students. Frank will run that for you. Online campus students. It's optional, as always. And it's there in case we get a bunch of people that, while we can screen share, we can audio share in Discord, it gets really kind of messy when there's more than one person, because Discord is not meant to handle that. It's good for one-on-one, maybe two, but it's a lot more robust, gives us a chance with a lot more features to help. So 1 to 5 on Thursdays, there's a separate sign up. It is not the same link as the campus lectures and labs. There's a separate open lab. And I'll show you where that is in case anybody forgets. Let me minimize that. Where are we? Right here. All right, so don't forget there it is. It's in the course overview activity 4. So if we go back, content, course overview, activity 4, you'll see there is our lecture lab down here. This is the open labs on Thursday. So you just use this link, separate link, if anybody wants to attend. All right. So any questions so far? Anybody have any questions? Diamond's good. Adriana's good. Jasmine. Damien, how are you? Questions? He's good. Okay, so Allegra, any questions? Dia, questions? Elle, Joshua, Marley, Tristan. Marley's good. Thank you. Okay, Dia's good. L's good. Very good. All right, thank you. All right, so just a little reminder, campus etiquette, remain 3 feet apart in the room at all times, please. Wear masks in all indoor environments at full sail, especially in class. You go outside, feel free, take your mask off. You know, it's up to you to maintain social distancing if you feel comfortable around people you know have been vaccinated. Just to kind of enforce the safety standards, please wipe your station down before using it and when you're done. We've got wipes here. You can give it a quick spray with the alcohol. That works also. It just helps keep everything clean. If you're sick, do not come to campus. Do it through Zoom. There is, from what I understand, there is no disclosure document that you guys need to fill out anymore. No headphones, earbuds during lecture, please, unless you are participating in Zoom discussions or, you know, you have some other kind of need for it. Yeah, make sure your phones are on silent. I always forget to do that. So that's why I put it in there mostly for me. Okay, so batch rendering will be due tomorrow night. My goal is to get you guys, and then lecture is not really that long. It's mostly the work that you guys will be doing today. So like half my lecture, you know, the first half, which is usually 2 hours, is going to be lecture, demo, get you guys up to speed using the different tools, and then it's going to be up to you guys to do the work. Now, my goal is to get you guys through the Unreal part in lecture, because that's actually pretty simple and it's pretty quick. That literally will take under an hour to do. The long part is going to be the Arnold. Now, just to give you guys an idea of how much time we're looking at, let's see, let's go. Well, let's do the Cornell rabbit and the still life. So Cornell rabbit or still life, whichever one you guys had, what was your render time for your final rendered frame before you put it into the template? Diamond, what was your time for project 3? 13 minutes. Which one did you do? Still life. Okay, so 13 minutes. Okay. Damien, what was yours? 16. Which one did you do? Cornell or still? Right, so you did 16 minutes. Okay, Jasmine? 10 for, oh, the Cornell. Okay, 10 for the Cornell. And Adriana, what was yours? You can just give me a ballpark. 25 minutes. Okay. All right. How about out there in Zoom land? What do we got here? So we got Adriana, we got Diamond, we have Damien, and we have Jasmine's times. So Allegra, what was yours? Dia, what was yours? Elle, Joshua, Marley, Tristan? Kind of render time. So 12 for the Cornell for Josh. Okay. See, Marley was 17 for the Cornell. Okay. Dia was 15. The bunny, that was a Cornell rabbit. Okay, which one did I put it under? Oh, okay, so you were under the still life. Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. There we go.
Wait, is this for the?
This is for project 3. Either still life, whichever one you did, because that is what you're going to be doing today when you go to batch render, because you need to have something lit.
Is there something we're supposed to work on over the break?
The Cornell rabbit was due Saturday before break. Project 3?
There's no way we're talking about the same one because
project
my
3
rabbit
is
rendered.
Go ahead. Your rabbit, go ahead.
It is for project 3. My render took 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay. So that's quite a variance of range. That was Allegra, right? You said yours took 1 minute?
Yeah.
You're probably going to want to evaluate the quality of that. 16 minutes, that's kind of on the high side. 25, definitely, ouch. The reason I'm saying that is because the exercise for today is 70 frames. So if you have 70 frames by 25 minutes, that is very scary to me. So I am not a math whiz, so let's just do this. We got 70 frames times 25 minutes. That's 1,750 minutes to render 70 frames. You divide that by, 60 minutes in an hour. So let's divide that by 60. And you come up with almost, 29 hours to render that. So the goal is to get it down under 5 minutes. Honestly, I will tell you that right now. Because when you start dealing with multiple frames, the idea is you're going to have moving. You can't focus on one frame. Whereas you can with a single frame, great. You can throw a lot of time at it and you can let it render forever. Honestly, the reference movies that I did for you guys, mine was about between 3 and 4 minutes of frame. different frames are going to take longer than other frames. If there's more movement in the frame, there's more for it to calculate. So let's go let's go 5 minutes a frame. So 70 frames times 5 minutes, divide that by 60. You're looking at almost 6 hours. All right, you get that down to say 3.5 minutes times 70 frames. You divide that by 60. Now you're around 4 hours, which is between 4 and 6 hours is the amount of time that is average to get a decent 70 frame movie out with what we've got to work with. Does that make sense? So Elsa didn't remember. Going to switch from my phone to my computer, no problem. Okay, so the idea is take a look at your render settings, do a couple of test renders. Check your camera AA. It should be somewhere between 4 and maybe 6, but honestly, I don't think you need to go that high. Your diffuse probably should be between 6 and 8. So the idea is to pare down without losing the quality, pare down the render time as much as possible, because now time is money. Now this is about meeting your deadline based on what you have to do. Whereas if you have a single frame, you have a day and a half to work on it, you can afford 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour even. Throw a lot of stuff at it. But when you've got 70 to do, then we have to kind of balance quality a little bit to get the time up, or I'm sorry, to get the time down. Now, in doing that, there's a couple of parts to rendering. Now, normally in your render view, the Arnold render view, when you go to render, it automatically denoises for you at the end. With Maya, we're going to render the frames first, and then we have to manually run the Arnold denoiser. So it goes and denoises all the frames separately. Now, it's a separate job to do. It's not that hard, but it is another step, and it takes about a minute or two to do. It's not like it takes forever to do. So just kind of warning you guys, I'm going to try and demo as much of the nitty-gritty stuff as I think you guys need. I've got documents for everything. So you should be able to get through that. If you have any trouble even, there's some troubleshooting in there. But Frank and Ari will be here in lab to help you guys. So like I said, my goal is to get you guys through the Unreal portion, which is really pretty simple, pretty quick. And then start rendering when we come back from break. You know, get the, well, let me put it this way. Do all the demos in the first part of lecture. My hope is that you guys can knock out the Unreal portion during the second part, and then set up and start rendering the Arnold portion. And that way, if you have any trouble, Frank and I can help you guys troubleshoot. So whether you did the Cornell Rabbit or you did the still life, it doesn't really matter. You want about the same render times. All right, so the documents for them, take another quick screenshot, make sure I get everybody for attendance. So documents for them are located inside the activity. All right, so you can see here, camera moves, Arnold. Like I said, between 4 and 5 hours, depending on what you have. Like I said, it might be 6, depending on what you've got going on. While you're rendering an animation, don't have anything else running. Don't try to stream anything on your computer. Quit out of Photoshop, quit out of everything that is not essential. And plug your computer in so that you don't drain your battery in like the first half hour. Now, the simulation, the Unreal, that literally takes, for you guys doing it the first time, it'll probably take a couple hours to do. Not a big deal, but you'll be taking your time going through step by step, making sure you're not missing anything. But if you were to do this every day as a career, you could probably knock it out in about 5 minutes. Literally, if you know what you're doing, you know where everything is. It's just a matter of, okay, I got these frames in from the animators. Okay, I got it. They told me it's frame 55 to frame 200. I set that up as my range. I go up, I set all the settings, and I render out my cinematic in Unreal. And then we take it into After Effects, make a movie out of it. Now, whether you're on a Mac or a PC, it doesn't matter. When you install the Creative Cloud, you will get the Apple, what we call codecs, which are the compression and decompression format to make a movie. So it looks good. Okay, Dia said for this assignment, we are using the same Maya project we turned in last week. That is correct, Dia. You are using the lit scene that you did for project 3. All right, so here you're going to choose whichever one you did, and there's a quick version of the Cornell rabbit. It is basically just a little orbit and kind of a zoom in at the same time. So still life goes from the opposite direction. And whichever one you did for project 3, here are your instructions. So if you did the Cornell rabbit, so I've got how to set it up in Maya, how to import the camera, how to set up the frame range, set up all the output options. Now, one thing that I will say is occasionally Maya will crash in the middle of doing a batch render. And a lot of times people panic and they think, oh crap, I have to start all over again. No, as long as you've got a few good frames, you start where the last frame that it failed on, you start there. So if you're rendering, say you set it up to render and you've got frame 1 to frame 70, which is the frame range for the rabbit or the still life. Okay, and it crashes at frame 5. Okay, if it's in the middle of frame 5, that's probably corrupted. So you start your next batch, not batch render, but you start your next sequence at frame 5 and then set it to 70. If it crashes again after 5 frames, then do smaller ranges. Do like, okay, it crashed at frame 11. So then you start at frame 11, go to 15, see how that goes. And then do 16 to 20. So if it crashes doing the entire range, don't panic, start where it left off, and you'll be able to tell it's not a good frame by looking inside the images folder. You guys know that's where your images go when they're done being rendered. So you go in the images folder, you'll be able to see little previews for all the good frames. The bad frame will look like it has a generic icon, and it won't have the full image size, meaning the full file size amount that all the other frames do. So honestly, it's probably about 2 to 3 megabytes per frame. And if you see something that's only like, 500 kilobytes and you don't get a preview and it doesn't open, it's no good. You start there. So that's why I have this little note right here. It said, if Maya's crashing after a couple of frames, you can change your frame range to start with the number after the last good frame. Try using smaller frame range. So we're going to set up the frame range. We're going to set up the camera to render from. This part's really important. We didn't have to do that because you were rendering in the Arnold render view. So here you have to tell it when you go to render a sequence, what camera to use, because you're going to have perspective. You're going to have top, you're going to have side, you're going to have front, and you're going to have the render cam. By default, Maya usually goes to perspective. And there's nothing worse than rendering something out and realizing, crap, it was in the wrong camera. And also you'll be able to tell it's the wrong camera too, because the camera is animated, not the objects. So if you don't see any movement in your frames, you know something's wrong. So we render the sequence out, and then we have to run it through the Arnold denoiser manually. That means all the frames are rendered. Then we open up the denoiser. It's actually very simple, got a very simple interface. You just you feed it the first frame. You set the frame information here, got it all set up on the right side. You choose the start frame number, which is 1, the end frame number, which is 7. Temporal stability frames, we don't have to worry about that. We don't need any extra frames. That's if you're doing motion blur, it'll start a couple frames before, or it'll start a couple frames after, depending on what it needs to read to get information about motion. We're not doing any of that. The variance, the search radius, and the patch radius are all going to be the same versions that we use in the Arnold render view. Now, the variance, by default is going to be 0.3, plug in 0.25, but it will round up to 0.3, but it is using 0.25. Why it doesn't show you enough decimals here, I don't know, but it should. But it doesn't, so just go with it. So it may take, I say, several minutes, depending on your computer, depending on what you have running. Could take more time, but generally it's fairly quick, couple of minutes. And you should be able to track it at the bottom. It'll show you the denoised and the status of it. Then you go into After Effects. Nice thing about After Effects is we can utilize After Effects' ability to recognize frame ranges, which means if it sees a file name with a number, and usually it's a file name dot number, dot extension being EXR, JPEG, PNG, whatever it is you're rendering, we're using EXRs. If it sees a dot number, it says, oh, you've got a sequence. Do you want me to grab all those frames that have the same name, but different numbers? You want me to grab those as a group? And I say, yeah, please do. And then it goes in and it creates your movie for you automatically based on the settings that are in the actual rendered images. It'll pick up the size, it'll pick up the file format, it'll pick up all the frames, put them together so it creates a movie for you. And then we put a watermark in it in After Effects. After Effects, since it's an Adobe product, the layers work pretty much the same as Photoshop. You have the ability to put a text layer on, which is what we're going to do for the watermark. And then you're going to basically render it out. Now, Adobe's version of render and Maya's version of render are way different. Adobe just says, okay, I'm going to take all these frames, put them into one file as a movie, a .mov file, and it literally takes under 20 seconds to render those frames. So it's not as dramatic. So like we said, yeah, we did that in Premiere, but we're not using Premiere. Just make sure you're using After Effects. It kind of works the same as Premiere. Only we don't need the audio and the transitions and the titling that Premiere gives you. We just want a movie. Okay, so that is for the rabbit. Same kind of detail for the still life. If anybody's doing the still life, you still got an animated camera to import. You still have the settings to set up. You go down, you still have to sequence render it, run it through the Arnold denoiser, and then you bring it into After Effects. Process is identical. Now, when you get into Unreal, the Unreal is going to be a little more involved just because it's Unreal. we have to set up the frame range, which is the same thing we're doing in Maya. We also have to set up the output settings, which is what we do in Maya, but it's going to be a little foreign to you because many of you probably have never done that. So the doc for it is pretty thorough. I just want to look at it. Just let me look at it. There we go. So dramatic all the time. Okay. So we basically give you an Unreal project. This Unreal project is way pared down. Unreal projects can be gigabytes in size. We've pared this down to be under 100 megabytes. We took out everything and left only the essentials for this very small scene, just to keep it so it's portable enough for you guys to be able to use and be able to generate images. So I'm going to show you how to launch Unreal. I'm going to also show you how to manually find where your project is. Because by default, Unreal, when you launch it, the editor will show you the Unreal folder and all the projects that are in there. And most of you, I include myself in that, will probably leave it in the document or the downloads folder or put it somewhere else on your computer. And it's good to know how to manually navigate inside Unreal to another location. Not hard, it's just, not something that we do all the time. So I've got a level set up in there. When you open it, it will be completely blank, but you double click on the level I have set at the bottom. That will launch the actual level scene that we're going to be rendering. You go into the correct camera, go into what's called the sequencer, and that is where all the animation happens inside Unreal. Go into the sequencer, we're going to set up the frame range, going to save that information so that if something happens in Unreal and it crashes, you open it up again, at least your frame range is saved. In theory, it should be, but always trust and verify. Well, I should say verify and then trust. And then just play through it, make sure it works according to what the reference movie is. Then we go into the window menu, and there's a cinematic section, and we have what's called a movie render queue. And this is a little bit different than some of the traditional Unreal used to call it screen captures, which are almost like play blasts. They don't give you the quality. Here, this gives you the ability to set up a whole bunch of different stuff. So we go in, we set up some custom settings, and you're going to save them. That way, when you deliver the Unreal project folder to me, I'll be able to open it up and verify you have all the settings put in. And today, you will be giving me the Maya scene file, as well as your movie. And for the Unreal, you're going to give me the Unreal project minus all the frames. I don't need the frames. I just need the Unreal project and the folder structure. The Unreal project and movie, and then I can go in and verify all the settings are correct inside Maya and also inside Unreal. And then you render it out. Looks a little different. You get this kind of weird render preview window, but you get EXR frames. And from here on out, it's After Effects, and it works the same as creating a movie for anything. Same process, whether it's an Arnold render sequence or an Unreal rendered sequence. After Effects doesn't care. Give it frames, they got numbers, they got extensions, everything's good, makes a movie. Okay. So again, just a reminder, the Cornell Rabbit, this is going to be if you did the Cornell Rabbit in Project 3. This is your lighting from Project 3. So we do not give you the project folder. We do give you the animated camera, which is just a Maya scene file with only an animated camera. Your job is to import that camera into your scene, save it out, work on it. Same thing with the still life. Get an animated camera. I got a reference movie, and we have the doc that you can use. Same thing with Unreal. Unreal is pre-done, meaning it's pre-lit, pre-materialed. It's all set up. All you have to do is get it ready to render. Okay. Any questions before we get started? Everybody good? Everybody's good here on campus. So Tristan, Marley, Joshua, L, Josh is good, thank you. Daya, Allegra, questions? L's good, Daya's good. Marley's good, Allegra, so far she guesses. Okay. So let's do this. Like I said, I'm going to demo the Unreal scene first. So first thing I want to do is download it, which all the downloads are here. Now, here's a screenshot of what you're going to deliver. So one master folder. Inside that folder will be the Maya scene file for the bunny or the still life, the movie, MOV format. And then there's the Unreal project folder, which contains the Unreal project, all the little subfolders, and the movie. All right, so here is the reference movie. You don't have to download that. I mean, you can use the reference movie. It's the same movie that's here on FSO. But if you want to have it, you can download it. So I'm just going to download the Unreal project folder. No, stop doing things. There we go. Okay, good. So here is my Unreal project that I just downloaded. And let's go in and look at the docs. And what I'm going to do is I'll explain stuff as I do it, why I'm doing it. That way it can kind of make sense, hopefully. All right, so I downloaded it. It's uncompressed. It's all set to go. You can put it in there if you want to. Like I said, I'm going to leave mine in the downloads just because 9 out of 10 people leave stuff in downloads or move it to their desktop or move it to another folder like your documents folder. So I'm just going to leave it there. So I need to launch the Epic Games launcher. Let me just make sure I quit out of everything unnecessary. Okay. So here we go. This is always fun. All right, so there's my Epic launcher. All right, so your engines can be found in library, and you want 4.25.4. Do not use the newest version. This scene was done in 4.25, and this is the reason I'm stating this is because this is what we've agreed to at Full Sail to be the standard engine version for Unreal. Newer versions work. Like I had 4.26 when it came out. It worked okay, but it did crash a lot more. And then everybody else was complaining it crashed too much for them. So we just decided, forget it. We're going back to 4.25. So what you want to do is launch 4.25.4. Right there. If you don't have it, you will need to add it. You can click in here and you can install any previous version up here. So do not do any brand new 4.27 previews. Don't do that. So just going to get rid of that. All right, so I'm going to launch. It's going to take a couple of seconds for it to, you thought Maya was big and heavy and took a while. Unreal does the same thing. Unreal is gigantic. So once it opens, you will get the Unreal Project browser. Select or create a new project. No, you go to more over here on the side. So like I said, I've got that notated here. You want to go more. So you go more. That opens up another window. Open existing project. Well, no, I don't have it in the Unreal Project folder structure. Well, no, that's not true. I don't have it in the main Unreal folder. So again, what we're going to do is go down here to Browse. Click on Browse, and now I can go to my downloads. And in my downloads, there's my expanded Unreal, and there's my project. And that's what you want to open. So give it a second. It'll kind of go through. Like I said, this scene is stripped down, so it shouldn't take like 6 weeks to open. Kind of make this a little smaller. Just so I can fit everything in here. There we go. All right, so now I need to make this bigger. Okay, there we go. All right, so new bunny burn. This is the level. If you hover above it, it'll tell you, oh, it's the level. So double click. That will open up, and you can see the bunny burning right now. It's on fire. Help me. Don't help it. Doesn't deserve it. All right, so then what you're going to do is you want to go to the correct camera. So in Unreal, this is the viewport just like it is Maya. You go to perspective, and you go down to the Cine Camera Actor. That's the camera that I have set up for you. Don't navigate around in that camera because it's set for the rabbit. So that part's good. Now we want to open the sequencer window. All right, so over here under the World Outliner, which is just like Maya's outliner, double click on Burn Level Sequence. Once you do that, you've got all the attributes, and then we can open the level right here. And that opens up kind of like Maya's timeline. So you'll see it's got a huge frame range. Now, to select the frame range, it's this icon right here, playback options. So if you click on it, it'll say, well, mine says start at -2. I'm just going to put 0 in there. And for the end, that's going to be 70. So you can see it kind of cropped or, pared down all the selection for it. So that part's good. So what I'm going to do before I go and save this, I just want to check, make sure it works correctly. One more time, let me play it. So the bunny bursts into flames and then just smolders. So that's good. You want to go ahead and save the changes we just made, clicking that little button. Now you can close the sequencer. So we did this, we did that, we saved, we played it back, we made sure it was okay. Now we're going up to the window menu, Cinematics, Movie Render Queue. So in the movie render queue, it's completely empty. We need to add what we want to render. And since I've got the level open, it will show me the level here. So I want to add that level, but it says unsaved configuration. So I'm going to click on that, and it opens up. Basically, these are the render settings. what we want to do is we want to change all these. So we did this. We have this. In the default settings window, we want to click the plus settings, which is this button right here. We want to add in anti-aliasing because we want it to be nice and smooth. So that drops it down here. We want to add in high resolution. Go up again, high resolution. Perfect. And by the way, anti-aliasing, high resolution, the settings that they give you are actually very good, so you don't have to change them. Next, we want to add in the EXR sequence. You can see right now we have a JPEG. We don't want that. So we go here, go down to output, and we want to add EXR. And we want to turn off JPEG because we don't want JPEG files. So that part's good. Now we need to go in and set the output settings. This is where we change stuff. So output directory is predetermined just like it is when you set your project in Maya. It goes to the Unreal Movie folder. So you don't have to worry about that. File name, you can just leave it at the default. You want to change the resolution to be 960 by 540, which is what we rendered out of Maya. So here, just type in 960, can hit tab, change this to 540. And then we're going to change the output frame rate. Since we're doing video, we're not doing film. We're going to change this to 30 frames a second, which is standard video output. Then down under frames, we're going to turn on use custom playback range because we want to start at frame 0, which is what we set at. And then we're going to end at frame 70. Then once we're done that, we click accept. That locks it in. Then what you want to do is go to unsaved. Go over, just make sure all your settings are still good here once you accept. Go over to presets and save as preset. Once you're sure, you save as preset and give it your name. So I usually put last name underscore first name. As long as you put your first name underscore your last name or last name underscore first name, that's fine. Once you do that, hit save. And now you can see you've got a preset with your name on it. And I click on that and it loads in all your settings automatically. So once you're done, you click accept. Now you can see the settings are yours. And this is where we render. Now you want to be careful that you render using the local button, not remote. It's not like we're going to render to another computer and have that render all the frames out. So render local, that will bring up this kind of weird looking little, there we go, and it's done. So at this point, we are pretty much done with Unreal. Now, one thing you want to do at this point is close this, go up to File, and save all. Oops. Save all right here. Now, before I close it, I'm just going to go and look inside my Unreal project folder to make sure my frames are there. So your frames are going to be under saved. They're going to be under movie renders. And there they are. So if I hit the space bar, that'll bring up a preview. And nothing happens to the bunny for like the first second of animation. And then close to the first second, it starts to explode. Okay, so that's good. Looks like all my frames are there. One thing about Unreal, it kind of gets weird. It doesn't render out the 0 frame or 69 or 70. it gives you frame 1 to frame 69. That's fine. Don't worry about it. So at this point, we are done with Unreal. Everything worked. We can quit. Anybody have any questions so far? Does that make sense? Pretty good. Diamond, you good too? Okay. Damien, good? Questions? Okay. Allegra makes sense. Okay. Tristan, Marley, Josh, L, Daya. Questions so far? Josh is good. Thank you. L's good. Thank you. Marley, all right, awesome. So we've got our frames. Let's go on to the next step. So everything's good. We saved all, we quit, found our movie frames. Now we launch After Effects. Little word of warning, After Effects is a memory hog like Photoshop and Maya, both. They're both memory hogs. Unreal is another memory hog, so you're going to need to quit out of the editor, which I already did, and also quit out of the launcher before you launch After Effects. All right, so once you do that, we're all set. We can launch After Effects. So give it a couple seconds to think about it. There we go. Whew. One thing I've noticed with the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite is after you update any of the apps, you go to launch them for the first time, it takes like forever to check everything and load the filters and all that, at least for me. All right, so first thing we want to do is we want to create a new project. That part's pretty simple. That brings you into the After Effects interface. Nice thing about this interface is it gives you a choice. You can do a new comp from scratch, or you can do a new comp from footage. We want new comp from footage because it'll automatically grab the right file format, the right file size, and create a composition for us automatically. So new composition from footage. That brings up, hey, guess what? I want you to load in the frames that you have. Now, it automatically loaded in a bunch of the last time I used this app, but when I go to downloads, which is where my Unreal project frames are. So under the bunny burn, under saved, movie renders, all you have to do is click on the first frame, and After Effects says, oh, okay, open the XR format, import as footage, open the sequence. Meaning it's going to open the entire, 1 to 69 set of frames. So we click open, give it a couple seconds. It loads it in, puts it in the timeline as a new layer down here. And to play it, just make sure the timeline is highlighted down here. You can highlight different portions and hit the space bar. After a couple seconds, it'll start to play. It'll look a little jerky, but once it loads it in, it gets quicker. So just hit space bar again to stop it. You can move the slider around at any point. So far, so good. At this point, I would recommend saving your After Effects project in case anything happens. So File, Save. I like to put it in the same folder as my frames. This way, everything travels together. So that's downloads here, movie renders. And let's call this Unreal B-Burn. Click save. Good. Now, if anything happens, at least I've got an Unreal project folder or a project scene. It's really what it is, with my frames loaded in. All right, so now what we want to do is we want to create a new layer down here for the text. This is our watermark. So with the timeline selected down here, go up to the layer menu, go to new, and go to text. Now it should put a blinking cursor right in the center. So I'm just going to type my last name in, underscore first name, and then my term ID. Now notice it went off. Don't worry about it. I'll show you how to fix that. So year, underscore month. I've done that. Make the watermark color yellow. Don't worry about how bright it is. We're actually going to change the opacity of it down in the layer. Now, everything you want to do at this point is down in the layer. So the new layer will automatically take the name of what you typed in. So expand that layer. There's a little left arrow here. You want to go to transform. And you'll see position. All right, if you hover above the blue numbers, the finger will turn into a little slider. It's a virtual slider. So what I can do is then take this, and just kind of slide it around. I can slide it up and down to center it. And I can even scale it a little bit. And I want to change the opacity of it to 15%. Now, rather than use the slider, I'm just going to click once and just type in 15. Now, you can change fonts up here. You can change it from regular to bold if you want to. You may have to redo it. I'm just going to leave it at the regular. So I've got my watermark all done. If I want to, I can just hit play, make sure I can still read it. Yep, it's good. So when you do a change like that, make sure you save. So now we can select our composition and export it to what's called the render queue. Here's the render queue, but we don't have anything in the render queue. Somebody have a question?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Allegra.
So is that what the end of the watermark is supposed to look like? It's supposed to have the full year and then month?
Yep, just like the directions say up here. Except I forgot the underscore, so I can put that in.
Okay.
All I have to do is select it, go back in, put the underscore, rearrange it a little bit.
What about the past watermarks?
What about the what?
The past watermarks, they looked a bit different, I guess. It just said YYMM, so I assumed that I wasn't supposed to put the full year.
For those, you're not required to. For this, you are, since I have it spelled out here.
Okay.
Yep. That's a good question. Thank you. All right. So we got all that done. Now what we want to do is export our footage, which is what all this is, to the render queue. So it's simple: file, export, add to render queue. Oops, didn't do it. go down here. Okay. Export, add to render queue. There we go. So now you'll see you've got a bunch of blue type, which are actually, if you click on them, they will allow you to change settings in each one. So for the render settings, this is perfectly fine. We don't need to change anything here. Down under output module, this is where we're going to change the basic codec. Now, on a Mac, your format is automatically set to QuickTime. On Windows, it might be AVI. You need to change it on Windows to QuickTime. That way you will be able to load in. I don't want the media browser. Get out of here. Okay, no media browser. That's fine. We want to go down and change it here under format options. So right now the video codec is set up for animation, which is okay, but it's a really huge file that's not very movie friendly. So we're going to change this to be Apple ProRes 422 LT. All the apples are up here. LT makes for a fairly compact movie file, then the quality is good. So once you're done, you click OK. Now you can see you've got your Apple ProRes 422 LT. Down here, one last thing, I like to turn off audio. We don't have any audio, so I don't want it to even worry about calculating audio. But if you leave it on, nothing bad will happen. Just click OK. So now we're set. The only other thing you need to do is select the path for the movie to go to. So I'm going to click over here where it says output to. I want to go to my downloads. I want to go to my Bunny Burn, Unreal, saved, movie renders. I want to put my render in the same folder that I have my project and my frames. I'm also going to change the name of the movie. Now, you guys will have the correct name set up for it. I'm just choosing a quick name temporarily. So don't forget, file output. This will be the final name of your movie, which you can do after you render it out. Right now, I'm just trying to get a quick name, get the location set. So all I have to do here, let me pull this down a little. So all I have to do now is click the render button in the upper corner. I've changed my output module. I've changed where it's going. I changed the file name of the movie. All I have to do is click render. It's done. Now, before I quit out of After Effects, I'm going to save. And I also want to check to make sure my movie is in the folder. All right, so it should be in here. There it is down at the bottom. So I double click, open it up in QuickTime, and there we go. So now you've made a movie, or technically it'd be a cinematic in a game engine. You've made a movie from Unreal using high quality settings. And since it's real time, it is fast. Okay, so that takes care of that part. So I can save this and quit out. Now, when you turn in your project, your Unreal project, okay, before you submit your project, right? You're going to rename your folder For you guys, since you're campus students, you're going to rename it to this, your Unreal project folder. That's going to be this one right here that everything sits in. Also, you're going to remove all the frames that were stored in the saved images folder or the saved folder here. You can remove this whole folder before you zip it up and send me the Unreal. I don't want your frames. It just makes for a huge file. But take your movie out. You definitely want your movie in here. I'm going to take this out. I'll usually put it there. And now this folder can be zipped up. And that's what you're going to submit, obviously, after you rename it.
Wait, sorry, what do you want us to do with the frames?
Down here at the bottom, last step. Remove all frames located in the saved folder inside movie renders.
But leave the saved folder.
Yeah, save folder stays. You're just pulling that out. That's because I don't need, 150 megabytes of files size.
Okay.
You guys don't want to spend that much time waiting for it to upload either. Make sense?
Yep.
Okay, good. Good question. So, yep, save folder. It's got all the other stuff in there. In fact, if you remove this saved folder, all of the settings that you saved in the Unreal project will be removed also. So you definitely don't want to do that. Just remove that movie renders folder after you take out your movie. And the good news is, if anything happens, you need to redo your After Effects, you've still got all the frames and you've got the After Effects project. So you can just redo it if you accidentally delete it for whatever reason. All right, good question. Thank you, Allegra. Anybody else have any questions? Diamond, question? Diamond, okay. Jasmine's good. Damien, you good? Okay. All right, Tristan, Marley, Joshua, L, Dia, Allegra, any questions before we go on? And we're going to work in Maya now. Allegra's good. Anybody else? All right, so it looks like most of you did the Cornell Rabbit, so that's what I'm going to demo. So let me get everything set up here. All right, I'm done working in there. Let's go in here. Okay. Good. All right, so I've got my Cornell Rabbit frames rendered already, but I'm going to show you guys how to set it up because you don't want to sit around and watch my stuff render for 4 hours. So that would be absolutely ridiculous. But I'm going to show you the process. So I'm going to launch Maya. We'll set it up. Got to wait for everything to load in. All right, so far so good. Let's go back here. So we're going to do the Cornell Rabbit. All right, so you want to set your project to the project folder for project 3 that you worked on. So let me go back here, make sure I got everything. Where's this at? Project 4. First images, good. I don't have anything in there. Okay. So there's my Cornell rabbit. Got that set. So let's set project. I've already renamed it from project 3 to project 4. So let's go lesson 4 right here. That's my folder right there. Hit set. And let's open up the Cornell rabbit. All right, so this is my final lighting. I'm just going to render it out just to make sure everything's set. Let's disable the denoiser because right now all I care about is making sure my lights work. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, everything's good. I'm all set. So I'm going to do a save as. This way you don't destroy project 3. Always save as. Project 4. All right, let's try this again. 2021, 07. Okay, there we go. Now I had to change mine to ASCII. You might have to change yours to binary because I think I changed it. I haven't updated my file here. But whichever one you have to save to, go ahead and save to it. All right, so I'm all set to go. Next, I need to download the animated camera. Since I'm doing the Cornell rabbit, I download that camera. If you're doing the still life, you download that animated camera. So let's go back here. Let's go down. So there's the Cornell rabbit animated camera. There's the still life animated camera. So let's open that up. So that drops it into my downloads. Stop. Okay. So what I want to do is take that and put it into my scenes folder. Because I want that scene file, which technically only contains the camera. I want that to be in the same folder because I've already set my project. So you want to put it into the scenes folder of your project. Okay, import it using these options. So if you're unfamiliar with import options, they're actually quite simple. You go File, Import, Options box right here on the side. Under import options, down under namespaces, make sure this is turned off. Uncheck it if it's on. You want to resolve clashing nodes. That means any node in the scene file that you're importing that has the same name as a node in your scene that you currently have, it resolves it by changing the name for you. And it uses the file name. So that's why you want to have with the file name. Now it makes for a really terribly long name, but at least you didn't overwrite nodes. So there shouldn't be anything like that, but you always check. So I go import. It wants the name of the file. I'm going to import the Cornell Rabbit animated render cam. Hit import, continue, and there's my new camera. Now I can verify if it came in correctly by going into the outliner. And there it is. It didn't put any kind of weird name on it. It didn't find another camera in your scene file with that name. So that is my camera now. Now, I want to save this because I've imported the camera. And you want to do a quick test just in wireframe or in the viewport to make sure the camera works. But you need to use this as your render cam. So you go to Panel, Perspective, and you choose the new animated camera. Now, before you hit the play button, it's always a good idea to set up the start and end frame range and playback range, which are 1 to 70. So that's down here. So right now they're both set at 1. See, this one is the start of the animation. That's the start of the playback range. End of the animation is going to be 70, and it should adjust the playback range to be the same. So now I can hit the play button. There we go. So my camera is working correctly. Let's save. Why? Because why not? It's Maya. All right, so we did all this. Now we need to go into our render settings. All right, so in the render settings, file output, you want to make sure you give it a name. I'm going to call this CR Cornell Rabbit animated. That's good enough. This is a working name for all your renders. So image format EXR, that's good. You want the zip with the tiled selected. We also want to add in merge AOVs because this is where we give all the frames the denoise information so we can run the Arnold denoiser. So how do we do that? Just down here, turn that on where it says merged AOVs. Then we go under color space, make sure use transform is set up. We want to change the frame animation extension. Right now it's a single frame. We want to change it to be name dot number dot extension. That's exactly what Unreal gave us. Gave us the file name, a dot, a frame number, a dot, and an extension. This automatically makes it into an animation. Now, frame padding, by default, it's 1. And you can see right now it's just CR_anim.1. Use padding, which means it will give you whatever number you plug in here will add digits to your frame number. And you saw Unreal had like 3 or 4 frame digits. So you can go 3, you can go 4. I like to have the 00 there. This way, if I have more than 100 frames, it doesn't start overwriting itself. You can add 4. In fact, most pieces of software automatically give you 4 digits. For this, 3 is good. Right there. Frame range. Right now, by default, it's only giving us frame 1 to frame 10. So we want to change it to be frame 1 to frame 70. These settings should sound familiar. This is pretty much what we did in Unreal. By frame number, We want it to render each frame. We don't want it to skip frames. We're not trying to make stop motion. Like if you're doing stop motion, you could do it on the 2s or on the 4s or on the 6s, and you could make it render every 6th frame. So you would get that nice kind of charming stop motion look. Next, renderable cameras. Right now, we've got 2 cameras here because we added another camera. We only want a single camera. If you accidentally forget, guess what? You get double the frames, double the time, double the aggravation, all courtesy of your neighborhood Maya. So what you want to do is get rid of the renderable camera that says render cam. Now you're not deleting it. You're just removing it from having an extra camera. It's still here in the list. All you've done is say, I only want 1 camera to render from. And now you'll notice that it changed the file name from camera to, cranim.001.exr. You want to verify the image size is HD 540, which is 960 by 540, like we did in Unreal. Resolution, all this stuff is fine. We're good. Now we go into Arnold. So pretty much my stuff is all default except for the camera AA and the diffuse. Those are kind of the settings that worked for me. I like them, they're good. This would be a good time to revisit those settings if you crank them way up for your project. Like I said, don't forget the camera AA is the master multiplier of all the other parameters. Diffuse, specular, transmission, subsurface scattering, volume indirect. A lot of these we're not even going to use. But for today, since it is just a diffuse material, all we need is diffuse and camera AA. All right, so we did that. Render settings. Oh, up here, right. Sampling, we did that part. Now we want to go under the AOV tab. Right there. All right, so AOV is right here. You want to turn on output denoising AOV. That will allow you to embed the denoise information in the file, so when you use the Arnold denoiser manually, it picks it up and will denoise all the frames for you. And it will give you a separate set of frames. It will add the word denoise to it so that it keeps it separate from your undenoised frames. Now you're going to get you're going to get a set of they're not going to be denoised initially because, like I said, we have to use Maya's render view to output. Once it's all done outputting, then we run it through the Arnold denoiser. But you need this on there. So turn it on. You can hit close. Don't forget to save. Always save before you render. So now we render the sequence. For that, we have to go into Maya's render view. Maya's render view is this icon right here at the top of the list. You can also go under Windows, Rendering Editors, Render View. That's the same thing. This is Maya's render view. Looks a little like Arnold, but not nearly as elegant, and it doesn't have any imagers that you can denoise. So by default, Arnold should be chosen since we have that set up already. Arnold renderer is all set. Now we want to go up to the render menu. We want to go to render. And we want to make sure we choose the right camera. Right now, it's trying to render from perspective. We want to render from this camera right here. Now, if you accidentally kick off a render, hit the escape key on your computer. That will cancel that render. Like I kicked it off because I didn't have it set up properly and I didn't want to do that. So good. It didn't even, there it is. It tried to save that for me. I don't want that. Garbage. Okay. So let's go back, do this again the right way. So now let's go back to Maya's render view. I'm going to use this button now. What you want to do is go down under render sequence. I went here. If you're doing a single frame, you can go here. But sequence options is what you want. And this is where you can verify you have the right camera in. Now, the reason you have to use this is because, look, it says we're rendering a sequence frame 1 to frame 70. It picks up all that information from the render settings. So verify everything's good. Then you click render sequence and close. Now it will render all the sequences, whereas before it was only going to render one frame. So render sequence and close. You can see down in the render view behind it, it says rendering. I'll let it go through one frame just so you guys can see what it's like. It's going to be slow. Don't be upset if you don't see anything. Like right now, all you're seeing is white. That's because it's busy rendering and not really caring about displaying what it's doing. I really wish Arnold would embed a sequence render in the render view, but they don't have any plans because they want you to buy the commercial version of the software so that you can use batch rendering, because batch rendering is actually much more efficient. It doesn't use the interface. Like once a batch render kicks off, you can theoretically quit out of Maya and it runs as a standalone application. But you got to pay for that. So right now, I'm happy. Student version, free, it's my price. I can dig it. So yes, it is a bit like watching grass grow, paint dry, any other metaphor you have for passing time very slowly and painfully. Waiting for the clock to end on a class you just can't wait to get out of. Tick, 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 tick. All right, so we're moving along. So stuff on the outside looks like it's picking up pretty quickly. Stuff inside where there's more detail, it's got to spend a little more time. All right, there it is. So you saw it go through. Now, I'm going to let this continue, but if I go into my, here it is. So now that frame is good. If it crashes, that's what it'll look like. It'll be like OpenEXR. It'll have like 4 kilobytes or some ridiculously small file size. Like right now, that's 10 megabytes because that contains denoise information. So I'm going to stop this and pretend that it rendered completely. So if you want to cancel this, hit escape on your computer. That will cancel it. There we go. So I'm going to pretend that we're all done. Now, when you're done, all the frames will show up in here. So I'm just going to grab frames that I have done already. Oh, I got it here. Animated frames. So let me grab all these. I'm going to copy them. And let's put them here. Let me get rid of all these first. All right. So when you get them all done, This should be basically what they look like. You can step through them just like you could with the Unreal. So I got movement, life is good. Now, the thing is, I need to grab these frames and denoise them, because right now, I mean, it doesn't look too bad, but there's still some noise here. So to do that, well, I mean, obviously you have to wait for all the frames to finish before you can do this. We're going to use the Arnold denoiser, and that is inside Maya. So let's open up Maya. That's under the Arnold menu. Under Utilities, Arnold denoiser. So click on that, brings up a little window, and this is where you load your frames in. Click on this button right here. We need to navigate to my images folder. There it is. All you have to do is select the very first frame. It's sort of smart like After Effects. Since you're doing an animation, it's going, oh, okay. Click select. There we go. Notice it picked up number, number, number. That means it's picking up all the frames that have numbers. And it's going to dump them back into the same folder, but they're going to have the word denoised on them. All those default settings are perfect. So now, what we want to do is let's make sure frame range, it's set to start and end. You want to start at frame 1. You want to end at frame 70. Temporal stability, like I said, we don't need any frame before or frame after information. It doesn't have to ramp up for an effect, like motion blur. Variance, this is where I'm going to plug in 0.25. If I hit enter, notice it rounds up to 0.3, but it's still using 0.25. So it's the same settings that we used in the Arnold render view under the imager. So the search radius, the patch radius, all those are fine. We're not doing any light groups or anything. That's it. Once you've got it set up, you click the denoise button, and down at the bottom, it will show you the status, and it'll also start showing you the frames that it's denoising. Like right now, it's on frame 2. Now, depending on what else you've got running, so now it's on frame 4. Leave this window open. It will close when it's done. So frame 5. Now, if you want to see what's going on, you can go into your Finder, and you can see there's your denoised frames. As it finishes a frame, it dumps them in. You have to wait for all the frames to finish before you can use them in After Effects, because we're grabbing the denoised frames in After Effects. And the nice thing, After Effects will say, oh, okay, you want all the denoised frames with that number, and it'll grab them for you. All right, now I'm going to pretend that my denoising is all done. You guys get the idea. So let me cancel this. All right, canceled. Good. So it did 13 frames for me, which isn't bad. So you figure it's probably going to take, like I said, it should take under 20 minutes to render or denoise all those frames. Like I'm streaming, I'm recording, I'm also trying to denoise at the same time. So I could shave another 5 minutes off not doing all that stuff on my computer. All right, but I've got a set of denoised frames done already. I'm going to use them for After Effects. All right, any questions so far before I go into After Effects? Everybody good? Allegra, you got any questions? Daya, Elle, Joshua, Marley, Tristan? Allegra's good. Thank you. Okay, none from you. All right, so what I'm going to do is let me copy all these denoised frames. And I'm actually going to pop them into Maya. And yeah, let's replace all the ones that are in there already. There we go. So this is what yours is going to look like when it's all done. All right. So After Effects, well, unfortunately, I recommend quitting out of Maya. Why? Because Maya, After Effects, like Maya, Photoshop, memory hogs, somebody loses, it's always you. It doesn't matter who crashes, it's always going to be the one you don't want to crash. So let's quit. Make sure I don't have anything else running that's not important. And let's go After Effects. So the process for this portion is the same as what we did in Unreal. All right, so we want to create a new project. We want to create a new composition from footage. This time we have to navigate to find our footage, and that's going to be inside my Maya project folder, inside my images folder, and I want to select the denoise EXRs. So I'm going to select the very first frame, and it's going to go, oh, okay, open EXR footage, open sequence. That's exactly what I want. So just make sure you select the first denoised frame, just like I have. Hit open. And now you should have a sequence set up as a movie of just denoised frames. There we go. Everything looks good. At this point, save your project. File, save. Make sure you put it into the same location as your frames. Well, let's do this. It's going to be CR Anim. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add a layer. So down here, layer, new text. Same deal that we did last time. Last name, underscore first name, right? Year, underscore month. So 2021 underscore 07. So I'm going to move it around inside, just like I did last time. That's going to be under transform. And it's going to be position in X and position in Y. And I can scale it up a bit if I want. And opacity should be 15%. There we go. Going to hit play just to make sure. Yep, everything looks good. So now we want to export to the render queue. So render settings, we don't need to change those. Those settings are good. We do want to change the output module. So output module, click on lossless. Don't forget, on a Mac, QuickTime is selected already. On a PC, I think it's AVI, so you need to change it to QuickTime. You're going to change the format options. This time, we're using a different codec for this. This is going to be Apple ProRes 4444. Slightly less compression than the Unreal, just because it is slightly higher quality than the Unreal. Either one would work, but I want you guys to get used to following procedures and directions, because when you go somewhere to work, they have very specific codecs that they use and very specific file naming. So video codec, we want Apple ProRes 4444. Click OK. Again, I'm going to turn audio off. If you forget, nothing bad will happen. And we click OK. Now, we need to set where that movie is going to go and also the file name. So I'm going to select the folder that has my frames in it, which is right here. And let's give it that name. All I did was click on my After Effects project and it grabbed the name for me. All right, so yep, that looks good. Movie, click save. My location is set. My file name is set. All that's left, render button. Done. Don't forget, save. Check it before you quit out. There we go. Done. And you can quit out of After Effects. So if you chose to do the still life, it's exactly the same process, obviously different set of files, but it's the same Arnold render and then denoise. All right. Anybody have any questions? Simon's good. Adriana's good. Jasmine, you good. Damien, you good? Damien's good. All right. Tristan, Marley, Joshua, Elle, Daya, Allegra, any questions? Allegra's good. All right. So my recommendation is we're going to take a short break. There's going to be a chance to render out the first part of lecture. If anybody needs to rewatch it for reference or whatever, you can do that. I'm also going to be here. When we come back, work on the Unreal first. Get that done. Start setting up for your Maya render. And then, hopefully, maybe even you guys can kick off the render before we go to lunch. And then when you come back, you'll be fairly far along. And, Frank and Ari can help you guys out if you have any issues. All right. So if there are no questions, let's take a 20-minute break, which will give me a chance, like I said, to render out the first part of lecture, start getting it upload. Well, it should upload, but processed. So let's see, come back at 9:17. No, come back at 9:20. It'll, I have a feeling this is going to take a little longer to render out the movie. Yeah, come back at 9:20. We'll pick up I'll lock the room up for anybody with their stuff in here. And I have to end the session as always, but I will see you guys back here in 20 minutes.